Previously, in Mahabharata, the malice of the Kauravas reached a fever pitch. Duryodhana, blinded by envy, plotted with Karna and Shakuni to seize the envoy by force. But the elders, Bhishma and Drona, rebuked the prince, warning him that such a sin would seal the fate of the Kuru race. Even as the plot brewed, the messenger of peace drew near. The dust of the road settled as Krishna reached the gates of Hastinapura. He was met by a grand procession led by Bhishma, Drona, and the sons of Dhritarashtra. Thousands lined the streets, their eyes fixed on the chariot. The air hummed with the immense respect of the citizens. Even women and children climbed to high vantage points just to glimpse the face of Vasudeva. As the chariot moved through the city, the sheer weight of the crowds on the balconies made the great mansion seem to sway. The streets were adorned with gems, and flowers showered down like rain. People prostrated themselves in the dust, for the divine aura of Krishna turned the capital of the Kurus into a temple. Krishna entered the white palace of Dhritarashtra. The blind king, along with Bhishma and Krupa, stood to honor him. With eloquent and measured words, Krishna greeted each elder according to their age and rank, his voice filling the hall with a gravity that silenced all whispers. Leaving the palace, Krishna visited the residence of Vidura. As the chief counselor and brother to the king, Vidura's home was noble and prosperous, yet it breathed an air of profound dharma. Vidura greeted him with tears of deep affection. Here, in a dwelling that reflected his strong bearing to truth, they spoke of the well-being of the Pandavas. Krishna then visited Kunti. Seeing her nephew, the mother of the Pandavas broke into tears. She embraced him and wept for her sons, describing their harsh life in the forest. "How does Yudhishthira survive?" she cried. Her grief was a sharp contrast to the luxury of the city that had forgotten her children. The wounds of the past reopened as Kunti recalled the day of the gambling match. She spoke of Draupadi being dragged into the assembly and the stinging, harsh words of the Kauravas. The deep scars left by the sons of Dhritarashtra remained unhealed. "I fear Duryodhana's deception more than his weapons," she confessed. Krishna comforted his aunt and assured her of the victory to Pandavas. Later, Krishna arrived at the palace of Duryodhana. The prince, acting with a wicked heart, offered a grand feast, heaps of jewels, and half his kingdom's wealth as hospitality. Surrounded by Karna and Shakuni, Duryodhana smiled, hiding his malice behind a mask of excess and false generosity. Krishna laughed, but his eyes were cold. He pushed away the golden plate and declared, "One accepts food only out of love or necessity. I have no necessity, and you, Duryodhana, have no love." He stood firm, stating that those who hate the Pandavas hate him as well. The food of the Kauravas was tainted by irrational hatred. Rejecting the royal hospitality of the prince, Krishna made his official stay at the house of the Prime Minister. That night, in the noble quiet of his grand hall, Vidura shared his fears. "Your peace mission is futile," he warned. "Duryodhana is deluded and surrounded by kings who harbor old enmities." Vidura's wisdom saw the shadow of the coming war looming over the empire. Coming next, Krishna stood firm as the first light of dawn touched Hastinapura. "I will deliver the terms," he said. The divine envoy prepared to enter the court of the blind king to offer the final chance for peace before the storm of war.